For horse riding, the older the person gets, the better the skills become. Because sometimes I see for show jumping, some of them are bald even.
Yeah, I know.
They're pretty
You know,
old and expect sports, people who do sports to be young, with lots of energy, but not horse riding, I guess.
No, I think because so much of the riding comes from experience level, and you know, the more you compete, the better you get. And the problem with being young is I personally could go to tons and tons of competitions, but you can't do that with the horse. You know, you have to be very careful about how much you compete them each year, because it's very easy for them to get injured, and you want to protect them as much as possible while trying to gain as much experience as possible, which is why where the age factor comes in is, you know, it takes years and years to accumulate the experience, and unfortunately the sport, a lot of learning comes from making mistakes. It's, you know, trial and error, and you kind of have to take the time to make all those mistakes before you figure things out. And I've just been very fortunate that I have the horses that I've been able to cram almost 4 years of experience all into one, and just kind of really condense everything.
Is it true that women are better with horses because we tend to be more sensitive to animals?
I think it helps. I think, you know, maybe not every woman is, but I think a lot in general have a very good connection with them, which is why I really like this sport, because they don't differentiate between male and female riders. We're all grouped together. We compete all together. You know, there's no, I mean, other than age restrictions for safety matters, like you have to be a certain age to move up a level, everyone gets lumped together. We all compete with each other, and I think... So you compete with male riders as well? I compete with male riders. I can compete with someone who's 60 or someone who's 18. I mean, it's just, we're all in one group. And the sex of the horse doesn't matter? Nope, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. No, it's so that's one thing I think is really interesting about the sport, and that I really like about it, because, you know, the advantages that you have being a woman, and that we're, you know, maybe a little bit more sensitive to the horse, whereas the men have an advantage usually by height. I think height tends to help with the riding. It keeps you a little more secure on the horse. So we have, you know, our advantages and disadvantages, and they actually used to, a couple of years back, make the women add weights to our horses. I mean, this was before I started riding, but you'd have to carry dead weight on your horse when you ran the cross country, because they thought that us, you know, most women being lighter, it was an advantage. And it actually proved that the dead weight was a disadvantage to the horse, and it was too exhausting. And that I think, you know, because you have a partner in the sport, you know, it's not just about the rider themselves, it's about the horse as well. That kind of evens out the playing field, because you have to have a horse that you get along with, and everyone gets along with a different sort of horse.
Do you fall off the horses sometimes?
I do, quite often, more than I'd like to admit. Yeah, I think it's just part of the sport. You know, the more you fall off, the more you learn from it, and the tighter you learn to stick, because it hurts more every time you fall.
What was your heaviest injury?
I've been very fortunate. I've got no wood to knock on, but been very fortunate so far not to have had any major injuries, which is very lucky. And I've had a few bad falls, but I think because I'm pretty timid on the cross country, or try and be a very careful rider, I think that's helped out a lot. And then, you know, sometimes it works against you, where if you're too timid and you're not decisive, you start making mistakes. So I did have one bad fall where I had a horse flip over sideways on top of me while jumping into the water, but it was very lucky that didn't get hurt, and that he got off of me pretty quickly and got out of the way. So
after every fall, don't you feel scared to go back up again on a horse?
I do, and I think what has really helped me with that is having more than one horse to ride. I was after this fall that I just told you about, it was my first ride of the day in this competition where I was riding 4 horses, and it was my scariest fall to date, and definitely when I came off I didn't really want to get back on, but I think having to get on the next horse and ride the same course again and be on a horse that I trusted, it really helped bring my confidence back up. I think if I had quit riding after that first horse, it would have turned the fall into a problem for me, and become a fear of mine, rather than seeing, oh, I can get on, go fix the problem, and we don't have to worry about it. We can move on from there. So.
How many horses do you have?
I have 4 at the moment.
4.
Yeah, all qualified to go to the Olympics.
Oh.
I decided to get 4 horses mainly to give me the experience I need to be able to compete at the Olympics and try and do it safely.
How do you forge partnership with the horses?
I think what I've found, I've taken 2 years off of university just to focus on the riding, whereas when I was in high school before, I was dividing my time between the two. And I think with taking this time off, I spend a lot more time around the barn, and I've noticed a lot more about the horse, and I find that I've got a much stronger bond with them just in general on a daily basis. And I think that really contributes to the way that they behave when you ride them. You start to understand them a lot better. You're able to anticipate, some of the things that they're going to do. And I think it builds a very strong trust in between you. The more time you spend with them, the more you get to know them, get to know their quirks around the barn, what they like, what they don't like.
Do your horses listen to you all the time?
No. It's an interesting thing about the event horse is that I think we find you don't want them to be completely obedient because you want them to really respect you and listen and pay attention. But there are times on cross country where you as the rider, like I make mistakes, and I want my horse to be able to get themselves out of trouble. So you want a horse that can think quickly and has a really good sense of self-preservation. And I think, more so than in the other disciplines, maybe event horses have a little more independence.
That's about horse riding that non-riders would assume. I think people who don't ride horses would assume that just let the horse do everything.
Yeah, I think I do hear that a lot.
Just ride. You're doing nothing. Is that the way it is?
No, it's not, because the horses, they don't want to run cross country. They don't want to do dressage. They don't want to do any of it. They'd much rather, walk around in the field, graze all day, sleep. So we're really, trying to train them to do something they're not naturally inclined to do. And I think it's good when people say, oh, the horse does all the work, because that's the idea. We want to make it look easy. That's when you know that you have a great partnership going with them, when it looks like you don't even have to do anything and they'll do everything you say.